You watch, the euro's going to break up. And on deeper research, you've got a lot of globalists have said the euro was set up as a receivership arm to destroy sovereignty, not to be part of a union, and then to hand it over to a private corporate union. And we've seen this now in country after country. So how do you see this ending? Because the bankers will always take more, because they've bought off the government and own the whore media, the dominant dinosaur zombie media, just like zombie banks, propped up and force-fed. By the way, Dew gave me an email last night with the document. I forgot to get this to Watson and get an article out. Homeland Security has now announced they're going to put TVs in our cars and bombard us with forced messages. Oh, that is so huge. That just popped in my head that I have that since yesterday and have not given it to, or Watson didn't see it in the email. We've got to get an article out on that right now. My head is just spinning the amount of info coming in right now, ladies and gentlemen. But, I mean, how long can this go on, Bob?
It could go on quite a long time, and I'll tell you why. If the Bundestag passes the approval to allow this financial stability group to take care of the problems of the ailing members, then what they can do is issue bonds. And they can extend this whole thing as long as there are buyers for the bonds within the Eurozone group of 17 or the EU group of 27 in total. And so if they get that ability, what this does is the countries are forced to participate in the bond offerings unless they're recipients of the subsidy. And that effectively takes away their sovereignty because the national banks will take, like the Bundesbank, it won't have any more control. And next what they'll do through that agency of stability, they will then demand that the internal finances of each state be run by this stability facility. And so they want to take the sovereignty away from all of the countries, the ability to make their own budgets to have their own spending. They will be told what they can do and what they can't do. And it will all be centralized in this stability group. And this is what Mrs. Merkel is pushing for. You know, she's from the former Eastern Germany, Mecklenburg, West Pomerania, and that was a hive of pro-communist, pro-Soviet activity. I know, I used to spy on them. And so how she ever got into the CDU, I'll never know. She's certainly not middle of the road by any stretch of the imagination. Well,
look at who the Bilderberg Group puts in as the head of the euro. Admitted communist Von Rumpi. The whole lot of them. That's who the bankers put in is communist because they want all the money transferred to themselves. There's no end to this tyranny, and we've got to deal with it. Now, I want to play a clip dealing with vaccines with Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, just an excerpt of our interview. We'll be back in about 3 minutes to get Bob Chapman's take on this. Then we're going to look at a couple other big issues that we're facing, dealing with eugenics. Then we're going to get a pop-in from Aaron Dykes and Darrin McBreen on the ground for the urban warfare martial law takeover drill in Denver. But here's a clip from InfoWars Nightly News last night. There are so many TV shows, movies about mega death, billions dead, not a question of if but when. You've got to get the shot. And when you learn that this vaccine industry is a $100 billion industry a year or more, you really see that this is product placement, propaganda placement, and that's the race in the hole is just scaring the daylights out of people.
Absolutely. And the vision statement of the pharmaceutical industry, which I learned this from a pharmaceutical insider, said that the vision statement of the entire industry is to have every single human on the planet on a minimum of 2 daily pharmaceutical drugs for their entire life. Well, how better to do that than to start with young children and making them terribly sick and have all sorts of things from asthma, allergies, eczema, ADD, ADHD that you can't really connect. Somebody told me that there was a line from that movie Contagion that said, we need to make this vaccine because if 10 years from now it's causing autism, nobody will be able to connect the dots. And that's exactly what they're setting up. They want everybody sick because that promotes their widgets.
Have you found the eugenics angle in your research?
I have, and I think that it's, what a lot of people say, and I would have to agree, that when World War II was over, everybody just traded in their uniforms for white coats and business suits. Nothing changed. It was life. Things just went on as usual. And I do believe that there is definitely a sinister side. And the problem that bothers me the most, Alex, is what's wrong with the 800,000 physicians in this country, that they just march to the tomb of the drug companies, that they're not willing to look at any of this information or very little of it. They don't know what's coming through that needle and being injected into adults and children. And they just absolutely stand by it and take people like me and you and other people who are exposing the truth and tell colleagues and other physicians say you're just saying all the wrong things. It's just really not true.
I'll tell you why. They've been following this system so long, they don't want to admit they were conned and were wrong. And so they're now committed to it. And I think they deceive us by even calling these vaccines. These are more nanotech, re-engineered viruses. I mean, now they've got the new classes coming out that re-engineer the brain and attack neurons that would uptake endorphins. The
fun vax.
Exactly. They're saying, no, don't be depressed anymore. I mean, this is really Buck Rogers type re-engineering of society, and they just call it vaccines, and they think, well, this is like the polio vaccine. We're saving people. Yeah, saving them with hundreds of millions exposed to cancer viruses.
Well, think about all of these girls that we were talking about just a few minutes ago that would get these injections of Gardasil. And it could be any of there's now, kids now get 40 doses of 16 different vaccines by the time they start kindergarten. And one of the things that people have to realize when they're listening to this, and it's school season, school just started, and across the country they've been telling people that parents, no shots, no school. Well, my answer to that is no shots, no school, not true. Every state except West Virginia and Mississippi have either a philosophical exemption or a medical exemption for you to opt out of your children being inoculated with all of these things. So there are a lot of ways that you could stop it, but every one of these vaccines all have horrible potential side effects. There is nothing that can come through a needle and to try to keep you healthy that you can't do for yourself just by your own diet, exercise, vitamin D, vitamin C, and all those things.
Well, Doc, that's another example of the hoax.
Exactly.
They continue to say it's the law, you've got to take it, and that's what's so wonderful about Perry being caught. We called him, it came out he didn't have the authority, it wasn't the law, and now he has to apologize, and all the other candidates are against him. Okay, there was an excerpt of the hour-long nightly news. Some nights it's 2 hours, it'll always be at least 30 minutes. We've never done only a 30-minute show. And as I beta test it and hone it, we're going to end up with a 30-minute show every night that then goes into a special report for another 30 so that cable systems that want an hour-long show can get it, or if you want a 30-minute show, you can get it. And then we're going to expand it over time into a 2, 3, 4-hour show and other news transmissions here out of our offices. We're even looking at doing a comedy show and a lot more dealing with satire. Going back to Bob Chapman. Bob, what do you think of what Sherry Tenpenny was saying? I mean, she's a mainline medical doctor. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, I bring up eugenics. She wouldn't go there. In the full interview, she volunteered that this has been clearly, purposefully bound to the adjuvant so that it attacks and causes an autoimmune response. Well, that's what Gardasil's been doing in its 5-year history. So it's designed to do that, and here's Sherry Tenpenny agreeing. I mean, these people are monsters, and now in California, it's on the governor's desk to shoot the kids up without parental consent. I mean, this is getting to be war here.
And it is war. And I read about that latter statement that you just made. I was appalled. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Giving children shots without telling their parents? I mean, it shows you how far afield these nincompoops that call themselves politicians, they're out of sight.
Well, a nincompoop,
though,
well, Lord Monckton called them nincompoops the other day. And a nincompoop, I really disagree with you, Bob, but a nincompoop is an idiot. These are cold-blooded psychopathic killers, but are you saying they're nincompoops because they think they're going to get away with it?
Yes, that's what I mean. Now that you've given me an exit.
No, but, I mean, you've been around these folks. I mean,
it's horrible. I mean, I carry this stuff in my health section and not very many newsletters that aren't devoted to health have a health section. But I've had one from the very beginning. I haven't had shots for anything since I was in the Army, and we do vitamins, minerals, and herbs, and have for 48 years, and it probably is one of the reasons why I'm as healthy and able to do the job load that I do. And so I'm very interested in health. But they are poisoning us. They are especially honing in on poisoning our children so that they will become users of our medicine.
Bob, in the final segment coming up, I want to get to this incredible article dealing with Cameron going to the UN and the UN agreeing that they want to start, quote, more humanitarian invasions where they finance the rebels and then come in and bombard and call it peace. And that dovetails with UN Security Council announces new green helmets, peacekeepers that will invade areas that aren't taking care of the earth. And now they've begun. The New York Times basically endorses it. Armed troops burn down homes, kill children to evict Ugandans in name of global warming. They're forcing them through a World Bank operation off their hereditary land to plant trees on it for carbon offsets. And the liberals are hailing this. They shot and burned the children up, and they're actually hailing it. So a new level in psychopathic behavior from the trendy Nazis. Now, before we get to that with Bob Chapman, I want to bring up and then get Bob's take on it. Aaron Dykes and then a comment from Darrin McBreen, who we barely had a chance to talk to earlier. They're in Denver for this forest guardian, I'm talking about the mass murder, sorry, mountain guardian situation. I know you guys have been to some more drills now. You've been at SWAT team takeovers of schools, all federally directed. Aaron, what have you witnessed in the last 2 hours?
Alex, we just had major updates on a part of the press release where they admit they're using the sports stadium here. Out of breath, we've just been checking with sources. They're using the sports stadium to test processing, and then we confirm with the source at the stadium that although they won't let us in, there's been school buses arriving with teachers and children. So that's your FEMA processing center right there.
Well, that goes back to a program. Wow, I hear out of breath. Catch your breath for a minute, Aaron. But you got to get up on a tall building. I doubt they'll let you run a helicopter right now during one of these drills. You've got to get it because that's what they did in Chicago, but wouldn't let Dew and Douglas into that, and I'm sick of it. And that's usually the real drill. And they practice at these whenever there's an emergency. In fact, I've got to get a hold of Watson. The Washington Post, remember 5 years ago, reported that in emergencies, they're going to take your kids away from you, take them to sports stadiums till you agree to come turn your guns in to get them. That's how they get you in, the people they want in custody. They grab your kids out of the school and make you come to get them, and then you're never seen again. You've confirmed. Tell us the sources if you can. Obviously, we knew when they wouldn't let media in the sports stadium exactly what's happening.
The first source is the actual news advisory, which gives the layout of the entire exercise. On the bottom paragraph of page 1, it talks about the use of Catholic Charities and the Sports Authority field at Mile High Stadium, which has been renamed from Invesco to Sports Authority, to test student-teacher processing activities, a little code word of theirs. Meanwhile, we were getting the runaround at the stadium, but one of the employees tipped us off that, yes, the buses were coming in, and no press was allowed. They're only allowed in the parking lot more than, I don't know, a quarter mile away.
We're going to check the Alex Jones channel at YouTube. Kurt Nemo's updating as we go. But we first
just did a major update.
Yeah, well, we first just learned about this in 2000, pre-9/11. We got photos sent by listeners. We called the school. It was in the Ozarks, on the Arkansas-Oklahoma border. No, Arkansas-Missouri border. We've got articles on InfoWars. I've got to pull them. They're from 10 years ago, or more than 10 now, almost 11. And in that, they were practicing taking kids away from their families to a FEMA center. So you're saying that is indeed going on, and you have their press release. Were you able to get footage of the vehicles driving in?
Well, Alex, this is Darrin now, and we're on our way. Like Aaron might have just told you, we've just been tipped off that there are school buses loaded with children.
Oh, my God.
They're being driven in on the other side, so we're going to go over there real quick.
Yeah. And, get in the car. Get in the car. Drive while we talk. Get in the car.
Okay, drive while we talk.
Yeah, get over there. So you just got...
We've also been told that residents in the area, they've been warned to expect loud noises, explosions, and smoke. We've witnessed all three. We're also seeing a huge there's a military presence. And right now, we're going to drive on the other side and see if we can catch these school buses entering the stadium.
Yeah, what this is learned helplessness. They train the children to go with the men in black uniforms and disappear. And they admit, I remember Mark Cornke talking about this 15 years ago, and I halfway didn't believe it, that they'll take you to a sports stadium and make your parents come, and then they arrest you there. And then sure enough, it was confirmed later.